Alright, so I have those obstacles that you have to go around, but they don't really do anything right now. You could just move straight through them and it wouldn't matter. I can just go right through them, nothing happens. So what I'll do is go back to my main player sprite, and I'm going to set up another if touching color. I just copied this one and I'll change the color. And I'll set the color this time to the exact shade of red of the windmills. And if they're touching, and by the way, that the reason I'm using color is that if later I go to expand on this game, I'm going to be adding more sprites. And if there's a lot of sprites, eventually it's going to get really annoying to specifically code if touching sprite 1, sprite 2, sprite 3, sprite 4. What if you have 12 sprites and you have to specifically code that for each of those 12 different sprites? Well, instead, if they're all just the same color, you can sense collision with the color. So that's why I'm choosing to use color instead of the sprite name, because it makes the game more expandable. Anything that's red is just going to be an obstacle. All obstacles will be red, and they'll be this specific shade of red. So now, if it's touching red, what I'll have it do is, for one thing, go back to the beginning, which is -165, -69. And also, I want to keep track of how many times I fail. So I'm going to need a variable for that. So I'll go to variables, make a variable, fails, and when you collide, change fails by 1. So now I'll try to play the game. I run into a windmill. I got sent back to the beginning, and fail count went up by 1. Right? So I'm going to try to avoid the windmills. If I get failed again, so you can see if I'm messing up, it seems like it's counting. It might be counting twice sometimes. I think I'm just moving too fast. Yeah. I think I was just moving. I was just moving out of the safe area. So one thing you'll notice is if I stop the game and start it, my fail count doesn't change, and I really want to start at 0. So I should also, at the beginning here, set fails to 0. So now if I restart the game, I restart my fail count. Alright, so we've got a way to fail. We should also have a way to succeed. That will be a sort of safe zone at the other end. It's a goal that you're trying to get to. So in this case, I'm going to create, we'll just paint again, another sprite. This one, I don't want it to have an outline. I just want it to be a fill. I'm going to choose a shade of green, I think. Make it just a darker shade of green so it's obvious that it's not the same color as the player. And I'll just draw a rectangle. Make sure it's centered and resize it to fit that sort of safe zone at the end, right here. And then I'll use that specific color. If I go back to my player sprite, if touching so this will stay, but something about it's going to change. So you'll see what I mean by that. First I'm just going to set the color, get the eyedropper, choose that shade of green. If it's touching that shade of green, I still want it to go back to the starting location, so that can stay the same. The goto can stay the same. However, I want another variable. This one's going to be level, and I want to change level by 1. Also, keeping in mind level, by default, this variables all start at 0. I'm going to set level at the beginning of the game to 1. I'll start on level 1 instead of level 0. So now when I start, it shows my level, and let me just cheat to the end. Notice it reset my location back to the beginning, but it increased my level. So, okay, that's fine, except there is no level 2. So that's the next thing I'll have to set up. I'll have to set up my level 2. I'm kind of bad at this. I'm trying not to mess this up, but I am messing it up. Alright, here we go. I think I'll make it this time. And success. Okay, so you'll notice it increased my level counter. But nothing happened. There is no new level. So that's the next thing I have to add. What am I going to do about that? Well, I think I'm just going to keep my backdrop the same. I'm going to keep the same blue outline. However, the blue, the stuff inside the blue outline, like the obstacles, will change. So what I think I'm going to need is a broadcast for whenever it touches an end zone color, that dark green. I'm going to broadcast after it changes level. I'm just going to broadcast the level. Yes, you can do that. I'm just going to use the variable, plug that into the broadcast. So whatever the level is, whatever that number is, that's the broadcast. So I can have sprites listen for the level when they show up or when they hide. So for example, these sprites, when they receive the broadcast 2, right, because 2, just the number 2, is the broadcast when a new when level 2 starts. So when these windmill things receive the number 2, they're going to hide because they belong to level 1. Also, I want to make sure, since I'm hiding them for the beginning of the game, that means at the very beginning of the game I want them to show, because the end of the game is going to hide them, and if you don't make them show when you restart the game, then they just won't be there. So I'm going to do the same thing for the other windmill. In fact, I'm just going to drag this over to a sprite 3. And then also just get that show block for sprite 3. So now all of those sprites have the show and the hide. And so that's fine. These things are going to hide, but what's going to show up for level 2? That's what I'll need to draw next on another new sprite. So I'm going to draw, I think I'm going to make it a circle. Also the same shade of red, so I'll use this eyedropper for my color picker. Make sure I pick let me stop this. Wow, I don't think it's letting me choose from these shades of red. That's kind of weird. What happens if I draw the circle first? Okay, I draw a circle. Now I click fill, eyedropper. Oh, that's strange. Well, I think I might be able to get it dead on accurate because I didn't. I think I just made it a very specific shade of red where I just slid this all the way over to the left and this all the way over to the right. Maybe. I hope that works. It's really disappointing that it's not letting me use this color picker over here because this is the color I really want to copy. I might need to do something. I might need to adjust my colors later. We'll see. But I'm just going to remember that I have this slider all the way to the left for color, and then these sliders for saturation and brightness all the way to the right. If it turns out to be a problem, I know it's a really easy color to replicate because it's just all the way to the left and then right. It looks like it's probably the same shade anyway. So where do I want this to go? Well, I think I want this to start up here. And I'm just going to hide the windmills for now. By running their hide code. I want this to show up here when it shows up. And I'm just going to, I want it to go up and down. So I'll have a forever loop, and what it will do forever is move 10 steps, and then if it touches blue, it's just going to turn around and go the other way, so it just keeps bouncing back and forth. If touching blue, use the color picker. If touching blue, point in direction, current direction plus 180. And I want to make sure it starts here every time. So I want its current location, negative 103.67. I want to make sure it goes there, negative 103.67 at the beginning. So let's see how it goes. Looks like it didn't. I didn't tell it which direction to point. So let me make sure it points down. Let's try that again. Okay, it's kind of glitching on blue. It's not what I want. Let me make sure it moves a few steps after. More steps after. That seems to work. Okay. So, you know, just have to troubleshoot when stuff goes wrong like that. Alright, so I've got that set up for that ball. Now I can just duplicate this and I can just right click on the sprite down here, click duplicate, and now for sprite 6 I want it to do the same thing, but I want to start on the bottom and just not, it'll do all of the same things except it'll start on the bottom and go up. So it'll be the opposite. It'll go, let's see, I want it to start at negative, look at my current x and current y, negative 31, negative 53, and instead of pointing down, I want it to point up. So now I have them going in opposite directions. And I'll just do the same thing, make another duplicate. Which one is it? Pro tip, don't mess up your sprite locations when you don't have their go-tos set up at the beginning. So this is why you got to initialize your starting state of your programs. Now if I run this, my windmills are out of position. If I had given them clear starting positions at the beginning, I wouldn't have that problem. So let's see, where's my windmill go? Negative 69 and 2. Let's just make sure it does that, and then same for this one. 68 and 3. So now if I move them around, when I restart, they just go right back where they belong. Same with the red balls. They just, I'll just tell them where to start. -33, -51. I have 2 on the bottom, so I need this one to be up top. How about 76? Correction, 73. So you'll notice they're not quite bouncing parallel to each other. they're kind of getting out of sync. I think it's because my blue lines are crooked. That's that issue that I mentioned before. If you have crooked blue lines, it can cause problems. Well, that's the problem, is that when the red balls bounce off the blue lines, they will be crooked if they will be out of sync if your lines are crooked. So it looks like, I think my bottom line might need to just drag down a little bit more, and the top line might need to drag up just a little bit more. Might not be good enough, but let's just see if it works. Let's restart. It's better, but it's not perfect. So you can mess around with that to the extent that you want to. I mean, kind of makes the game a little harder when it's less predictable. So if you want it to be a really hard game, just kind of leave them out of sync. That's fine. I'm just going to kind of leave it for now. It's playable as it is. So I just want to leave a little gap at the end so that after you run the gauntlet here, you actually have somewhere to escape to. And what I'll do is I need to make sure that my level 2 sprites hide. So for sprite 5, 6, and 7, the red balls, I just need them to hide at first. And actually, I kind of messed up my starting block because those aren't supposed to be there. Or those aren't supposed to happen. None of this is supposed to happen at the very beginning. It's supposed to happen when level 2 starts. So at the beginning, all it's going to do is hide. And then when level 2 starts, when it receives a message 2, that's when it does everything that it really needs to do. So I kind of need to fix that for each of them. Make sure it hides at the beginning and then starts at the beginning of level 2. So let's see if it works. We've got, alright, so they go away at the beginning. I'm just going to cheat and jump to the end. Here I am at the end. And my sprites did not show up. My level shows level 2, but they didn't show. Why didn't they show? Let's see, when I received 2, do all this stuff. Is 2 being broadcast? It says change level by 1, broadcast level. Let me try one more time. The ball sprites are not showing up. They're not, but that's running. Oh, I forgot to show them. That's all. So make sure you do that. Make sure you have your ball sprites show when they start moving. That was my mistake. Alright, so now if I cheat to level 2, I'm actually on level 2. And I might need to reposition. Let me start over. Might need to reposition. I guess you just have to be careful when you end, because if you're still pressing right as you reach the end, you'll be moving to the right and you'll run right into an obstacle. So kind of just need to figure out the timing, see if I can make it through. Just barely made it through, and I made it to level 3. And this is where you come in. At this point, your job is going to be to create a level 3. Just create a whole new level on your own. Needs to have a blue boundary. You can keep, or it doesn't have to be blue, but it needs to have a boundary. You can just keep your original boundary and just continue with the strategy that I've been using so far. And just, I mean, if you touch this green, it's going to broadcast the level. So it broadcasts 3. You can just create some new sprites and do what we did here. Have them hide at the beginning, and when they receive 3, they start up. So that's an option. If you see a different option that you think works best for you, go for it. Try it out. but just creating a level 3 with sprites that are hidden at the beginning and then show up and move when they receive 3 is probably the easiest way to go about it. So go ahead and expand on this and add your own level 3. And that's all for this video. Good luck.